Jane Velez Mitchell here for Jane Unchained, and I am with my colleague Donnie Moss of theirturn.net, and we are talking about a legal battle that is raging in Florida over a proposal, a plan to build a facility in Hendry County, Florida, that would reportedly house more than 3,000 monkeys that would, according to allegations, be bred for experimentation. In other words, they would be shipped out to laboratories and experimented on the offspring of these breeding monkeys. This is what we can make of it. Straight out to Justine Cowan, who is a local Florida attorney who was working with Animal Legal Defense Fund, which is an organization that filed suit against Hendry County on behalf of approximately 3 area residents who have expressed concern. So thank you for joining us. Justine, where does this lawsuit stand now, if I may ask?
Well, right now, we actually found out today that it's likely that there's going to be a hearing scheduled in early March, in which the judge is going to consider a claim by Hendry County that this lawsuit should be dismissed because it does not that they never violated what we call the Sunshine Law, which is the open government law that this lawsuit was filed under.
What is your argument? What is the argument laid out in the lawsuit by Animal Legal Defense Fund on behalf of these 3 local residents who say they've got some real concerns and that they weren't allowed to participate in the process?
Well, the fundamental principle that is underlying this lawsuit is that of open government, and that the government should operate in the sunshine is the term that's commonly used, and that there shouldn't be secret meetings behind closed doors and decision-making without the public being fully informed and involved in the decisions that are going to impact them. In fact, that's really a fundamental tenet of our democracy. And because of that, Florida, along with probably just about every state in the nation, has a sunshine law which prohibits counties and other government agencies from doing backdoor decision-making. And in this case, the Hendry County officials approved the primate facility without bringing it out to the public, and instead had a backdoor meeting that allowed it to proceed.
And according to published reports, local reports in that area, they haven't even denied that. They've simply said, well, we really didn't need to do that. What's your response to that?
Well, in fact, they filed a motion with the judge seeking to have our lawsuit dismissed on a technicality that isn't even valid under the Sunshine Law, but nevertheless, and in doing so, they don't admit, they don't deny that the proceedings took place behind closed doors, that the public was not informed. They just say, well, we didn't have to do that. So they're completely admitting the fact that this took place behind closed doors.
Well, considering that this is an issue that concerns a lot of people, there's been a lot of press report on this, numerous reports about this controversial proposal. Why is it, and what is your reaction to their claim that, oh, we didn't have to inform the public?
Well, the Sunshine Law in Florida is quite clear that whenever government officials make major policy decisions or take what we call official acts, they have to inform the public, and they have to involve the public in the decision-making process. This just makes sense. The government is there for the people, and it wouldn't make sense for the government to adopt its own agenda and then to push that agenda behind closed doors and then impose it on the people. That's not the way American government works, and it's because we have laws like the Sunshine Law that allow us to go to court and stop that kind of behavior in its tracks.
Well, what's the concern of these residents? What are some of the things that they're worried about according to the lawsuit?
Well, there's all sorts of things that they could be worried about. Just to give a little bit of background, these citizens are located in an agricultural community, and under the local zoning laws, which is typical of most counties in the United States, they have an agricultural zoned area, and in an agricultural zoned area you would expect things like cows and horses and some barns and some hay trucks and, maybe some larger operations, but still, the variety of what we would call domestic animals. Here, the citizens had a right to expect that that's the only thing that would be in their neighborhood, but then suddenly it's going to be thousands of monkeys brought in from other countries that have already been declared by a court in Florida as a wild and exotic animal.
Well, you sort of hesitated, brought in from, now I've been trying to find out for a long time, where are these monkeys coming from if they would indeed come in, because this is a controversy and this ain't over yet, as they say. So, Donnie Moss, I know you've been looking into this on behalf of theirturn.net and JaneUnChained. You've reached out to Primera Science Center, which is the organization purportedly behind this, although there are many other corporate names that are mentioned in connection with this, which is another thing that concerns people. What have you found out about where these monkeys are coming from, and why won't anybody just tell us?
Jane, Primera Science Center doesn't even have a phone number on its website. So on several occasions, I have, on behalf of both of us, sent a contact form to the website asking for answers to these and other questions, and they have not responded. I also asked the same question to officials with Hendry County, and they don't feel that they need to answer that question because that's sort of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. There are other agencies that would regulate where the monkeys come from. I
called the Department of Agriculture and reached out to them, and I got a statement saying, well, they don't really get involved until the facility is built. I can say, I think I could feel comfortable saying, basically, I've gotten the runaround from various government agencies with each one saying, well, call that one. And so even though there are many government agencies that would be involved in monitoring, it doesn't seem like I can get a straight answer about who can tell us where these monkeys are coming from. If the government is monitoring it, wouldn't they know? Wouldn't they be able to tell the public? And I'll throw that back to the attorney who's working with ALDF, Justine Cowan.
Well, we're involved with a lawsuit against, regarding this facility, and we don't have any additional information about this facility. We have dug into the files and tried to find out more, and in my legal history, I have never encountered an organization that has gone to such lengths to protect their secrecy. And so if they're doing everything above board, if the public should be involved in all of this, I'm really at a loss at why no one is coming forward to just let us know who they are.
Well, here's what Primera said. They issued a statement, and I'm going to read it. It says, we want to assure Hendry County residents that Primera is in full compliance with the rules, guidelines, and laws at the local, state, and federal levels. Primera is committed to meeting the highest standards with the utmost respect for the safety and prevention of the surrounding preservation of the surrounding environment. We welcome the opportunity to discuss any relevant issues with the appropriate local, state, and federal officials. However, Donnie, they're not saying they welcome the opportunity to discuss the issue with area residents who have been demanding a public hearing. And indeed, there's a state senator, Dwight Bullard, who is a very esteemed state senator in Florida, who has called for a public hearing, and they have not complied with that request that the whole process be put on hold until there's a public hearing.
Jane, it's no wonder that people in the county are willing to be part of a lawsuit against the county. I mean, I've read here in New York City newspapers have reported on the fact that there are approximately 1,000 non-native macaques in the state of Florida, some of whom have hepatitis B. People are nervous, and they're not getting answers from the county, and they're not getting answers from Primera. So, it's no wonder why there's a lawsuit now.
Yeah, and I certainly couldn't confirm whether or not there's any monkeys in Florida with hepatitis B, but I think the underlying concern is, we don't know where these monkeys are coming from. We're in the midst of a global Ebola crisis. We know that monkeys can carry Ebola. There have been cases of monkeys with Ebola, and there have also been cases of monkeys in facilities that are holding facilities for monkeys escaping, Justine.
That is true, and there actually was a reported case in Florida that ended up in the court system in which a macaque actually got out of a facility and injured somebody, and that's when the court declared that macaques are wild and exotic animals and therefore subject to higher standards of liability. But here we have in Hendry County, they want to have it both ways. They're saying, oh, no, no, this is some sort of domestic animal that belongs in an agricultural area. And so when they say, when Primera says that they're going to be in compliance with all the proper regulations and all of that, well, in Hendry County, it seems like they're being treated as if they are going to bring in some cows and horses, when we know that that is that's not the case. But one thing that strikes me is why exactly, when the public reaches out and asks for more information and asks to be heard, is the response that county officials and this company that's bringing these in just buckle down as tight as they can, and instead of fulfilling their responsibility to the community.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. I know that Animal Legal Defense Fund had written to Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi asking for an investigation, and I have reached out to the Florida Attorney General's office because this was long before the lawsuit was filed. It was many months ago, and I know that Pam Bondi, as Florida Attorney General, makes a big point of saying that her first priority is public safety. And so I've reached out to the Florida Attorney General's office asking, well, what is the status of that investigation? And what are your concerns, if any, about this facility, since your top priority, out of your own words, is the public safety? Aside from Senator Dwight Bullard, do you feel like there's been sort of a laissez-faire, lackadaisical attitude amongst public officials about this?
Well, we have only been dealing just with the local Hendry County officials, and we hear from them through their attorney, and the position that they have is that because the decision was made at a variety of meetings, having some lower level people there, even though they made some significant decisions, and there weren't two commissioners at one of those meetings, that therefore the Sunshine Law should be thrown out. And that is the very decision that's going to be at issue at this hearing in March.
Do you think there's any validity to that argument?
Oh, there's none whatsoever. The Sunshine Law is quite clear in what it's supposed to protect, and that is it's supposed to ensure that government officials who are making decisions that are important, significant decisions can have to do that in the light of day. Whether or not there are two county commissioners, or whether or not the meeting takes place at 10 o'clock at night, or whatever it may be, that's not the relevant inquiry. The relevant inquiry is what kind of decision is being made, and was the public adequately involved in that decision making? And the answer to both of those questions is no.
Well, let me say this. I've covered criminal cases in Florida, for example, the Casey Anthony case, and I learned that Florida, the Sunshine State, has a very vigorous Sunshine Law. One of the reasons we were able to see all the jailhouse communications, the videotape between Casey Anthony and her parents and Casey Anthony and other visitors, and get all sorts of documents that are often kept hidden from the public prior to trial, is because of the Florida Sunshine Law. So do you think that works in your favor, Justine?
Absolutely. Florida takes the Sunshine Law very seriously, and courts have uniformly held over and over and over again that this law must be interpreted for the benefit of the public at large, and not for the benefit of the county commissioners or some company that wants to locate a facility here. It's about the public and their right to know what's going on in their own neighborhood. And when you think about it, this is really a property rights issue too. These people own their property, care about their neighborhood, and made decisions to live there, many of them for the rest of their lives, based on their understanding that the nature of their community was going to remain relatively unchanged. And a dramatic decision was made to impact their lives, and they weren't involved in the decision.
Well, let me ask you this, Donnie Moss. I covered a similar controversy that involved Puerto Rico. There was another company that wanted to build a very similar facility to breed monkeys to then distribute them for experimentation, and that was in Puerto Rico in a town called Guayama. And what happened was that the facility, according to reports, was actually pretty much built. And the legal battle ensued. A Puerto Rican state senator got involved. It went all the way up to the Puerto Rican Supreme Court. And it turned out that the facility was not allowed to open, that the Puerto Rican Supreme Court said they did not follow proper procedure. So do you feel that there's any kind of parallels here or not?
There could be parallels, Jane. I mean, I think what we all know from our own advocacy is that things that we thought we'd never be able to achieve, we can. If you take, sort of on a related note, the NIH has been conducting these horrific maternal deprivation studies with infant monkeys, and none of us ever expected 4 members of Congress to send a letter to the NIH demanding answers for why these cruel studies have been performed for the past 30 years, these useless studies, and that could bring an end to the funding of these studies. So you never know what's going to happen, but what we do know is that we have to take action if we want to see change. And I think the question we all have is, what can we do?
Right, and I think that that is an aspect. Now, I will say that Primera has said that one of the reasons that they're remaining secretive is that they're concerned about animal rights extremists. Now, you know, this is a free country, and one of the things that we cherish most, along with sunshine laws, is freedom of speech. And to ask questions about a proposed facility is certainly not being an extremist. It's simply asking questions, which is my journalistic responsibility as a reporter and my constitutional right as an American citizen. So, Justine, do you buy that argument that they've kept a lot of things under wraps that would normally be laid out right there for everybody to see because they're worried about so-called extremists?
That's just a red herring. I have not had any indication, even the slightest indication, that there is any problem with anyone acting inappropriately in this matter. We have the plaintiffs in this case are local residents that just want to know what's happening at the adjacent property. And you know, if every time in this country that you actually want to know what's happening on the next door, you're going to get told, well, nope, we can't do that because there might be extremists out there somewhere. I mean, that's not really an appropriate response. And they're also proceeding at their own risk. The parallel with the Puerto Rican case is that, and I see this happen over and over again, is that companies will dig in and refuse to follow proper procedures and thinking that they're going to win, and then at the end they don't win, and then they have to go back to the drawing board when all they should have done in the first place is just respond to the reasonable request of the public to know more about what's going on in their neighborhood.
Well, indeed, State Senator Dwight Bullard said as much when he said had they been transparent from the beginning, they wouldn't be in this situation. So I want to thank you, Justine Cowan, for taking the time. I know you're a very busy lady to come on and discuss this issue. I know you're going to court in March, expected. And please keep us apprised. We want to update this regularly. And of course, Donnie Moss, thank you as always. I'm Jane Velez Mitchell for JaneUnChained.com. Let's all stay on top of this story so that we can speak for the voiceless and also exercise our constitutional right to speak and ask questions. Signing off now. Thank you so much. That was great. I think I'm not signed off yet. Where is it signed off? Oh, stop broadcast.